So, how many of you can relate to that experience? Yeah. Some of you today, you say one thing, they hear something else, and you find yourself in the middle of the reality that communication is complicated, isn't it? I mean, in some ways, the words that we say are powerful. Some of your favorite, most meaningful memories are sometimes around words, key words, but I think some of our deepest pains are also around words. And what you may not realize is that the way in which we communicate, communication itself, is deeply spiritual. And so I'm really excited to step into this conversation with each of you. And I know some of you, you're like, wait, Ben, I need to warm up with the band. Don't worry, we got a great end of the service planned for you. But when it comes to communication, we don't always say, or we don't always know how to say what we want to say, and sometimes we don't always say it right, and you can't always put the toothpaste back in the tube. It just doesn't go that way. So sometimes you say the right thing the wrong way. This is called parenting toddlers, when you're like, hey, Mary, stop! And she turns around and she starts crying because she thinks I'm mad at her, and I'm just trying to get her to stop. Sometimes you say the right thing at the wrong time. This is called parenting teenagers, where you ask them to do something and all of a sudden they lose their mind in front of you. You're like, bad time to say that. Or if you're trying to help your aging parents and you're trying to have some important conversations about stuff and it's just never the right time. Sometimes you say one thing and they hear something different. That's called work. That's called school. And all sorts of other arenas, but it's like, man, this kind of miscommunication happens all the time. And sometimes you say something when you shouldn't, and you say nothing when you should. Who knows that's true about marriage, right? Some of you experienced all of that on your way here today, okay? So if you can relate to any of those, I'm really glad that you're here. Whatever campus you're at, for those of you tuning in online, I know we have people who watch on NBC. The CW told us there are about 800 households watching us on the CW, which is super exciting. And we have some men who we love to say hi to every week at Toledo Correctional. Will you put your hands together to welcome those who are watching? Just say hello. If we've never met, my name's Ben, and I am an expert in all of these areas, so I'm here to tell you what I have figured. I'm just kidding. When it comes to words, I need help too. And there are some things that have been helpful for me that I think will actually help you. And the challenge is you all already know. We already know that our words matter. We're taught this at a young age. But yet we still find ourselves in these communication gaps that we can't seem to close. What you may not realize is the more you use words in email, in text, verbally, wherever, the more words you use, the more opportunities you have to say one thing and have them hear something else. Did you know that the average person says 16,000 words per day? Some of you are like, no way, man, I'm like 1,600. That means some people are like 32,000 words a day. You're way above average. Who knows someone who's way above average, right? Yeah, you got some people like that in your life. That's if the average is 16,000 words per day, that's 5.8 million words a year. Wow, okay. That's 112,000 words a week. To put this in perspective, an adult book has, let me rephrase that. The average book for adults has 90,000 words in it, okay? That means you are writing 50 to 60 books per year with your words alone. That's 112,000 opportunities to miscommunicate. So if you can pay attention and lean in a little bit of what we're going to talk about, in fact, what I believe God really wants us to see in this, it may actually increase your well-being at home, with your kids, with your parents, at work, with coworkers, with your team, maybe even in your love life, which is appropriate this Valentine's Day weekend. Now, for some of you, you may be thinking, well, this doesn't feel very spiritual. You're right. In some ways, this is more practical. And we don't always connect the spiritual with our practical everyday life. I think that's an unfortunate disconnect in our faith, because you may not realize this, but if you were to take Jesus' teachings, if you were to look at what he talked about, the majority of the time, it wasn't like spiritual experiences. Not that he was against that. It wasn't even necessarily theological in nature. The majority of his teachings were extremely practical. Look at this one. At one point he said, so if you're presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, it's interesting. It's like he's saying, if you're in the middle of a church service and you're sitting here listening to the guy do the thing, you're presenting a sacrifice, it's like it's the middle of worship and you think, oh, shoot, that email, you know what? Or, man, we got a little drama going on over here and I probably contributed to it. You feel like somebody has something against you or you're carrying something against someone else. You know what he didn't say? He didn't say, pray about it. He didn't say, oh, sing louder. And he didn't say, get your attention back on God. Do you know what he said? He said, leave. Leave your sacrifice at the altar. And go and be reconciled to that person. Then come back and offer your sacrifice to God. You know what he's saying? That's amazing. He's saying he cares as much about your earthly relationships as he does about your connection with him. And so maybe some of you need to be here today because there's some work that God wants to do practically in your relationships, in your daily relationships. And the Bible is full of practical wisdom on how we use our words. In fact, if you want to Bible geek out like I sometimes like to do a word study throughout the Bible. Look up with a concordance, or you can figure out how to do this, online. Just do a word study on the tongue and the power of the tongue using words. Here are a couple of Proverbs where it talks about this. With their words, the godless destroy their friends, but knowledge or wisdom will rescue the righteous. In Proverbs 15, it says that gentle words are a tree of life, but a deceitful tongue, a harsh tongue, crushes the spirit. This next proverb, some of you have heard before, the tongue can bring death or life. I think we've all experienced both. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences. See, our hope, is to bring life to you and to your relationships. That's our hope, because your words matter. In fact, this weekend, we are actually equipping and helping parents know how to use helpful words and having faith conversations with their young kids. Because we know sometimes when parents have an opportunity to help kids talk about their faith, it can be challenging. You don't know if you have the right words or you're saying it the right way. And so what do? Sometimes we just assume other people are taking care of that and we put that on autopilot. Well, we want to come alongside of families in an initiative called Start Here, where our team wants to come alongside of you and help you begin the process of having faith conversation with your kids, because your voice matters. It matters just as much, if not more, than our voices here. And so we want to equip you to do that. And this series is really designed to help you think about all of the words that you use with the people that you do life with. We're going to dissect a single verse, which to me is super exciting. I know some people, they love to come and they like to hear lots of verses, but we're actually going to go deep into one verse over the next couple of weeks. Don't believe me? Buckle up. It's going to be fun. And it's loaded with all sorts of spiritual challenge. In fact, I would encourage you to memorize this verse. What do I mean by that? I mean, practice it daily. You can do it with your friend group, your family group. Everybody memorize it where you can say it without looking at it. So to practice and to begin that process, we're actually going to say the verse out loud together. It's Ephesians 4:29. This is the verse that we're going to do a deep dive in over the next couple of weeks. So wherever you're at, for a moment, let's say this out loud together right where you're at, okay? Let's begin. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. I imagine some of you have heard that verse before, and typically when people hear that, they're thinking about curse words. In fact, when people feel like I say words that aren't appropriate for church, I usually get a letter, and they quote this verse somewhere in that letter. How many of you had the soap treatment when you were a kid? You got soap in the mouth. Yeah, isn't that awesome? It's like some of you got soap. If you're doing that today, that's interesting. I don't know what to say about that. I don't know that it's really effective. What does soap taste like? I mean, aside from tasting like soap, it tastes like a curse word is what it tastes like, okay? And what's interesting is when people meet me for the first time and they don't know what I do for a living, I don't know why this happens, but like in our conversation, we'll be talking back and forth, life and all over the place, and they're saying all sorts of wonderful words, and then when they find out that I'm a pastor, they'll say, oh, shoot, sorry about that, sorry about my language. And it's like, I didn't really care. It was fine. Just keep talking. As long as my kids aren't around, If my kids are around and somebody says a swear word, I will look at them and say, will you please explain to my 4-year-old what that word means? And usually they're like, yeah, that was probably a bad word. And so here's a problem. If that's all this verse is about, is a handful of bad words, you significantly degrade the spiritual potential of this passage. And I think far too often we look at this verse and we're like, well, you know what? I don't swear. I'm good. And you may actually miss the spiritual significance of what Paul is trying to address. There is so much more going on here. And in order to begin to understand what's happening here and what we're being invited to, the bottom line that we need to remember is you choose the words that you use. You choose. For good or for bad. You choose the words that you use. And at first we all agree. We're like, well, okay, that seems pretty simple. Sure, I choose the words that I use until you blurt something out that you didn't mean to say. And you're like, where'd that come from? Or maybe you blurt something out in the middle of a meeting and everybody looks at you like, why did you say that? And you're like, well, somebody needed to say what everybody was thinking as if it wasn't your fault, you were just saying what everybody else was thinking. Or maybe you think to yourself, you blurt something out and you're like, well, I wouldn't have said that if you wouldn't have done. But what Paul is saying here, he's saying you choose. He's saying do not let, you go to the next slide, any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. He didn't say, hey, as long as people don't do X, Y, and Z, you're okay. No, don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth. And in the Greek language, that word for unwholesome has a double meaning. On the one hand, it means rotten, where we get the kind of vulgar language. It's like rotten language. That's one use of that Greek word, and I think Paul used that word for its double meaning. There's another use of that word, which is useless words. There are two categories of words, harmful words and pointless words. This means you could never swear and still violate the principle of this passage. He begins to point to that double meaning in what he says next. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. Like, here's a way to think about it. Paul is saying avoid words that are unhelpful and avoid words that are unhealthful. Yes, that is a word. It is a mouthful, but it is a word. Choose helpful or useful words and choose healthful words, not rotten or toxic words. One is about practical impact. The other is about relational impact. Now, it seems so obvious to us. At first, it's like, well, yes, I understand that, okay? We need to be careful about the words that we speak. But what you don't realize is how difficult it is in certain situations to use words that aren't helpful or aren't healthful. Psychologists have done a number of different studies where they have concluded or they have found that for every one positive comment or remark that you get, for every one positive remark that you get each day, there are 6 negative comments that you have to wade through. That means for every one good thing, you have to overcome and work your way through 6 negative. No wonder we are experiencing stress at work. No wonder our life feels like we're constantly dealing with all of this criticism and stuff. And those things tend to stick to us, honestly, a lot longer than the one positive comment that we get. And so we can think to ourselves, hey, so the moral of this message is be more positive. No. As you're going to see, it's not just be more positive. Has anyone ever tried to encourage you and they just made it worse? It wasn't their intent, but just the way that the words came out. Like when the first couple of years after I was lead pastor, I would have people come up to me and say, wow, you are so much better than you used to be. And the heart of their intent was to encourage me. They were just saying, hey, Ben, you're growing, you're improving, that's awesome. But I would walk away from that going, how terrible was I? It's like, that's pretty bad. I got one letter a year ago from a woman who wrote, hey, when you took over for Lee, I didn't think you were going to be able to lead this church the way that Lee had, or, you had what it took, I think was the line. But wow, 4 years in and you're still going strong. Way to go. Now, it was meant to be an encouraging letter, but, when you hear, I didn't think you had what it took, those words kind of stick to me. It's like choose healthful and helpful words. And sometimes me too, you say things and you're like, oh, I don't think that came out quite the right way. I stick my foot in my mouth as much, if not more, than anyone. So how do we choose healthful and helpful words? Well, look at what it says in the passage. That we got to build others up according to their needs. That's how you do it. This is why this is a little more challenging. Isn't it true that there are words that help you that don't help your spouse or your friend? Isn't it true that there are words that seem to roll off other people, but they stick to you, they rattle you? Have you ever had a coach or someone at school or someone at work that could seem to motivate a portion of the team, but that same response demoralized other people? See, if we don't naturally communicate according to the needs of others, we choose words that make sense to us. We speak according to our needs. We talk when we have something to say. We talk when we need something done, when we need to defend ourselves. It's difficult to think through and filter through the needs of others. And when words just kind of blurt out that make sense to us and they end up hurting, what do we say? We say, well, I didn't mean to say it that way, or I didn't mean that, or that's not what I said. And you get into this crazy cycle where it's like, well, why did you do that? And then back and forth, and whose fault is it? At the end of the day, good news or bad news, you choose. You choose the words that you use. Somebody's feeling it right now. They just know it's hitting home, okay? Maybe you're sitting there thinking, okay, I can get better, because that's what we do. Okay, you're right, Ben, I needed this. I need to get a little better with the words that I'm using. And then what happens? A week or two go by, and you find yourself back in the same rut. Have you ever asked the question, why? Why does this happen? Have you ever wondered why potentially it happens with others? What you may not realize is your wiring, your temperament, plays a role in the words that you choose to use. How many of you remember temperaments? I was introduced to them in junior high. If you're not sure, I'm not talking about mints that you get at a restaurant. I'm talking about a personality style assessment. It was a Hippocrates back in the ancient Greece. He is the one who's accredited with the Hippocratic oath that a lot of doctors take in medicine today. He developed labels for temperaments or different personalities, and it may have existed before him, but he used some Greek words that really related to shades and colors that a lot of our assessments and personality profiles like Myers-Briggs and DISC assessment use today. There are sanguines, there are cholerics, there are phlegmatics, and there are melancholics, okay? It's like your voice print or your eye color, your thumbprint. These are wiring from God. Your temperament influences the words you choose, and your temperament also influences how you hear words from others. Now, you may be sitting here thinking, well, Ben, I didn't come to church today to get a self-help personality assessment. Okay, hold on for a minute. Anything that's practical and helpful to your life and to your relationships is called wisdom. The Bible is full of wisdom. In fact, the Bible says that all wisdom that is true and helpful comes from God. And so if you want to get closer to God, one of the ways that we do that is by understanding how we are wired, seeing ourselves clearly. Because when we begin to see ourselves clearly, the way that God sees us, the way that God wired us, the more we're going to know ourselves. And the more we know ourselves, it's going to help us more personally and authentically connect with God and with others. And as you've seen Jesus teaching, he cares about our earthly relationships. So I think this is spiritually incredibly relevant to our lives. So here's what I want you to do. We're going to have some fun. Get out your pointer finger. Your finger pointer. Get out your pointer finger. It's going to be a pencil here in just a minute. You can do this at home as long as you're not driving, okay? So at home, if you're watching, wherever you're at, we're going to do a little bit of drawing. I want you to look at the 4 shapes, and I want you to think, which shape do you resonate with the most? And right in front of you, I want to see your fingers out. I want you to draw that shape right now, okay? Which shape do you resonate with the most? Keep drawing that shape. All right, now here's what I want you to do. I want you to see if that shape and that color matches what's really true of you. Let's watch. It is so much fun watching you watch that video. You're elbowing each other, you're laughing, you're ducking your eyes, it's great. So the question is really, what color are you? Now, which color did you resonate with the most? I'm going to ask for each group, and I want to hear, see you wherever you're at. So where are my yellows at? That's right. See, yellows, they struggle to just put their hand up. Usually there's a woo, hey, hi, over here, get out, because they're just the energetic bunch. I got a little yellow in me. Where are my reds at? Where are you at if you're a red? You're wondering why I didn't ask you to put your hand up first, okay? I get it. Okay, that's cool. Where are my greens at? The easygoing greens. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's right. That's awesome. Where are my blues at? Blues, you're questioning the validity of this whole thing right now. You're like, I'm not sure we can really trust this. But the truth is we'd probably be sunk without you. So did the shape, how many of you, the shape that you drew actually fit you? How many of you was like, yeah, that's me. Isn't that interesting? I don't think there's any science behind that. Maybe there should be, but it is kind of fun how we tend to resonate. Our temperament comes out in these somewhat predictable ways. And so we're going to refer to them as colors. The sanguines are yellows, the cholerics are reds, the phlegmatics are green, and the melancholics are blue. Those big Greek words are kind of a mouthful. And so yellow, red, green, and blue. No one temperament is better than the other, even though you feel like you have a better outlook on the world and reasons why. You tend to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses. And when you look at other temperaments, you tend to maximize their weaknesses and minimize their strengths. And we do this with each other. Here's what's important. Every temperament uses words a little differently, and yet somewhat predictably within their color. The yellow, the sanguine, or if you've taken the DISC assessment, the I on the DISC assessment often speak with fun, animated, exaggerative, people-oriented words with lots of exclamation points in their email. Hey, that sounds fun. Come join in. Come on in. And at the same time, they're like, oh, I totally forgot, So this is, how many of you have yellows in your life? You've experienced those. Yeah, everything is fun and energetic. If you have a red in your life, it looks a little different. They often speak with bold, bossy, confident, controlling words. I got it. I'll do it. No problem. Hurry up. Let's go. My kids have heard me say that a lot, okay? Follow my lead. Let's go. This is the D on the DISC assessment. This is how reds use words. If you're blue, a melancholic, or a C on the DISC assessment, you often speak with detailed, analytical, and compassionate words. I've been giving it some thought. I'm not sure we trust him or her or this, okay? You're thinking, are we sure that it's safe, right? And if you're green, or the steadiness, the S on the DISC assessment, you often speak with sarcastic, easygoing, patient, and kind words. No big deal, man. I'm good with whatever, Sometimes you're like, well, do I have to do it now? I mean, can I wait till tomorrow? Every one of us needs something that's hitting home over here to the left. This is great. I love it. Okay. Everyone needs something different. Everyone uses words a little differently. I'll give you an example. Last week we had the preach off. Wasn't that fun? Last week, having different people come in. Man, what a blast. I think the real winner for me was that commentator up in the booth, man. She just really liked the B team a lot, okay? So anyway, on Saturday, I brought Nate Manuel out on the stage, and we slow jammed. Every service, we had a little different guest come in. And so we did an impromptu slow jam, and he was just going to pick up words and phrases and jingle them behind me with the band. It was funny. We could have probably practiced a little bit more, but we really do live out that impromptu style. And so I had a keyword that hit that was Baby Yoda, and in my talk, I'm trying to think of examples or use examples where things that need to work, you need things to come together, to work together, otherwise it's not going to move you forward in life. And so I said, you can have Baby Yoda, but Baby Yoda needs the Mandalorian or something to that effect. And Nate behind me jingled, that doesn't work. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I look down at my keyword, I get another keyword, and I put the two of those together, and he jingled behind me, that doesn't work. And after the service, everything was done. I got backstage. I'm like, Nate, why'd you call me out like that in front of everybody? Like you were telling him my examples weren't working. And he looked at me really funny. He's like, no, I actually was singing your point. Like that Baby Yoda can't really do much without the Mandalorian. That doesn't work. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you said this. I heard that. And this is the kind of stuff that happens in our life. Oftentimes, because of our temperament, this is what Paul is talking about. As you begin to understand why you say what you say, and as you begin to understand what people hear when you say it the way that you say it, it's not always going to be natural. It's not always going to be easy, but it'll help bring clarity to how you use words that aren't unwholesome, but help build others up according to their need. To ignore this and to just do what comes natural to you, it also has a lot of power. And it can leave behind some unintended consequences that I think are powerfully illustrated in this next clip. Let's watch.
Ben, you forgot to bring the trash can up again.
Oh, sorry. I was just
I don't see why it's so hard for you to remember. You have to bring it up every single Tuesday. What, did you walk right past it? Come on, you don't even have that many. What is this?
I was just drawing something.
Well, clean it up.
I will.
No, don't just say you're gonna clean it up. Do it.
Let me just finish. Wait, that's my color.
You can draw when you're finished with your chores. Right now, it's not time to play. It's time to work. Do what I asked you to do first. Come on. Listen, there's no need to cry. All right, there's just a right way to do things. Now, do you want to do things your way, or do you want to do things the right way?
The right way, I guess.
All right. Now get this cleaned up. Now.
Hey, are you all done? What's wrong? Did he show you the comic book he was making you for your birthday? I think it was supposed to be a surprise.
Well, he knows he's supposed to do his chores first.
Dad, do you want to play my game?
I just have so much work to do right now, bud. I just really don't have time to play chess, okay?
It will only take 5 minutes, come on.
I know chess. A good game can go on for hours.
No, it's not chess. I completely made up my own rules, come on.
Well, why would you want to make up your own rules? I mean, chess is a great game. Look, the instructions are right here. Just look at that. Get you there.
No, but Dad, I made up the entire game from scratch. Just let me show you how to play, okay?
Look, chess has been around for 1,000 years, okay? Now there's a strategy and order. Change the rules defeats the whole purpose of the game. Look, I'm gonna show you how to play really quickly, but then I have to work, okay? All right, first of all, you'll need these.
What are you doing with those? No, don't throw them away.
It's just a bunch of paper, bud. You need to learn how to play the real game.
Oh, and those? Are you kidding me?
All right, let's see. These aren't set up right.
And I worked on those. And that was so hard.
Look, this is a rook, okay? It moves forward or backward, but never diagonal. Are you listening?
This isn't. This isn't very fun.
Well, we haven't even started yet.
I know, it's just that regular chess, it's so boring, and I liked my way better, okay?
Well, you can't just make up your own rules. I mean, there's just a right way to do things in a right order. Now, do you want to do things your way or the right way?
the right way, I guess. You know, my way seemed to be right to me.
All right, now this is called a night. Now,
Grab your stuff. We don't want to be late.
what, you're leaving already?
Yeah, I've got into summer camp. We've got an hour's drive ahead of us. How many times did you play his game? Isn't it so much fun? He's been working all day on it. Okay, say goodbye.
Bye, bud.
I know I don't always get it right. That's a tough video to watch. And at the same time, have you ever been on the receiving end? And I think we all have. Not a single vulgar word was said, but man, it's powerful. This isn't about like being perfect. But some of you, words have left you wounded. You carry them with you today. Or maybe there were words that you needed to hear that you never heard from the people that you needed to hear them from the most. What we don't always understand is that a lot of this is a temperament issue. It's differences in our unique wiring. Now, this is not an excuse for toxic words. We'll talk about that. But what this means is it's possible to change, to begin to communicate helpful and healthful words according to the needs of others. But where you need to begin is understanding why you choose the words you choose, so that you can begin to understand the needs and the temperaments of others. So I have some homework for you. And our hope really is that this homework is fun. Kathleen Edelman is the one who created the kind of the workbook and the content and an assessment around the I said this, you heard that. And our hope is that everybody at our church takes it. In fact, you don't even have to be a part of Cedar Creek to participate. We would love for this to go beyond our church. You could take it with you into the workplace. You can take it with you to your classmates, your friend circle, whatever it is that you kind of do life. Normally, the assessment costs around like $12 to go through and understand your color. But we've worked with the creator to make it available to people in our community for $4 an assessment. And we believe in it so much, we're going to give the first 3,000 away. And so here's what you get. You're going to get a score at the end of the day. And, it's funny. I already have people negotiating with me on whether their score is perfectly accurate, blues, okay, or not. But this is my score. I'm 16 yellow. I'm 21 red. I got a big goose egg on the green and a 3 on the blue. And some of you are like, that explains a lot, okay? My team looked at that and they were like, oh, okay, this is why Ben constantly looks like he's running around with his hair on fire everywhere he goes. It's either a party or it's a crisis. I'm not sure which, okay? And so what this does is this is not meant to box you in. It's really meant to help shine a little bit of light on your temperament, okay? And what you get is an overview of the temperaments. You get an overview of your number one color, and so it gets you an idea of how you're wired. It will go on to talk about your strengths and your weaknesses. They may or may not all be true about you, but they help you see you, and it'll help you begin to put into practice ways to approach other temperaments or think about the words that you're filtering. We're going to be talking about them over the next couple of weeks. This is where things ultimately start to get more helpful and healthful. You'll begin to see why you choose the words that you choose. There's an app that goes with this. If you're subscribed to Right Now Media, which is a resource we make available to anyone who's a part of Cedar Creek, she has a series of videos on there where you could do a deep dive. It's accessible for your family and your kids. This is an easy invite for people who don't go to church somewhere. If you want to introduce them to Cedar Creek, this is a casual, easy way for people to take a step foot into the church and get a little taste of what Cedar Creek is all about. And the reason that we're so passionate about this is because there are reasons why your communication breaks down. There are reasons why you say this and they hear that. And I believe as you begin to understand why you choose the words that you choose, you'll begin to live out this verse, to not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what's helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit all who listen. Not all words are helpful words. Not all words are healthful words. Not all words are weighted or equal. If you remember, for every one positive comment, there are 6 negative. And sometimes when I just show up the way that I'm naturally wired in the relationships in my life, I can potentially just speak what makes sense to me. And you know what? It may help a little, but if I'm not careful, it may end up on this side of the scale. But when I pay attention to the needs of the people around me, it's not a magic bullet. It won't just instantly solve everything. But it has a disproportionate influence when I speak according to the needs of my kids, my wife, my teammates, and my friends. Why is this important? Jesus said, "This is my commandment. Love each other. Love each other in the same way that I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends." Many of you have heard this passage before. It's like this is what Jesus is all about. But he isn't just talking about feelings. He's not talking about thoughts and prayers for someone alone. And that can be a part of it. But one of the things that he's referring to in this is the words that you choose to use. Think about how he approached us. How did he speak to us? Did he demand that we meet all of his needs? No, he came to earth to meet us according to our needs. This is what it looks like to live out this great commandment, loving your neighbor as yourself. This is really where we start to take a next step on that deepening, life-changing adventure with Jesus. And so I want you to start for just a moment and begin to think about, what is God's Spirit trying to say to you? Yes, I want you to come back next week. I want all of you to take the assessment. If you text that word colors to the number, we'll give you a link in about 30 minutes. We'll talk more about that at the end of the service. But for right now, before we get into that technical stuff, I just want you to go, okay, God, where do I need to let love lead? What is God's Spirit saying to you? Is there a relationship that's struggling, that needs mended? Is there an apology that needs to be given? Is there some words that were said over you that need to be surrendered? Whatever it is, will you take a moment right now and just ask God to help bring some clarity to that? And I would love to pray that for you right now. God, thank you for every person that's here. Thank you for your love. Thank you for laying down your life for us. God, I confess far too often I speak words out of my own temperament, out of my own understanding, my own need, out of what makes sense to me. And so, God, I am thankful. I ask that for me and for all of us, you would open our eyes to the ways that we can use helpful and healthful words to build others up according to their needs, the same way that you've done that with us. And so help us see where we can let love lead. Where is it that your Spirit is prompting us to take a next step today? Thanks. In Jesus' name, amen.